Captain Marcus Reed stood at the bridge of the exploration ship Endeavour, watching the massive space station grow larger on the screen. Nexus Prime was unlike anything humans had ever built. The station stretched for miles in every direction, with hundreds of different ship designs docked at its ports. Some ships looked like crystals, others like living creatures, and a few resembled mechanical insects. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," said Communications Officer Lisa Park. "Bay 47, Section C." Marcus nodded. "Take us in slowly, Lisa. Let's not make any sudden moves on our first day meeting the galaxy." 3 months ago, Earth had received its first message from space. Not from little green men, but from something calling itself the Galactic Coalition. The message was simple. "Welcome to the community. Please send representatives to Nexus Prime for formal introduction." Now, Marcus led humanity's first diplomatic mission to meet their new neighbors. His team included Ambassador Elena Torres, the best negotiator Earth had to offer. Dr. Robert Hayes, a scientist who studied animal behavior, came along to help understand alien psychology. Marine Colonel Jessica Walsh provided security, though Marcus hoped they wouldn't need her skills. The docking process took an hour. When the Endeavour finally settled into its berth, Marcus could see dozens of different beings moving around the station through the windows. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others crawled on multiple limbs, and a few seemed to float through the air. "Remarkable," whispered Dr. Hayes, pressing his face against the window. "The diversity is incredible." Ambassador Torres checked her formal dress uniform one last time. "Remember, everyone, we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good first impression." The airlock opened with a soft hiss. A small group of aliens waited to greet them. The leader looked like a tall, thin deer walking upright. Its fur was silver, and it wore flowing robes decorated with strange symbols. Behind it stood several other creatures that looked like peaceful plant eaters from Earth, something like rabbits, sheep, and gazelles, but walking on 2 legs and wearing clothes. "Welcome, humans," the deer-like being said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Gentlewind of the Thalan people. We have been eager to meet you." Elena stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for inviting us. I am Ambassador Elena Torres, representing Earth and humanity." Gentlewind smiled, showing flat teeth designed for eating plants. "Please follow us. The Council of Species is waiting to meet you." As they walked through the station, Marcus noticed something strange. All the beings they passed looked like animals that ate plants. He saw deer people, rabbit folk, and creatures that reminded him of horses. They all seemed peaceful and friendly. But where were the predators? On Earth, ecosystems needed both hunters and plant eaters to stay balanced. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles around a central platform. Hundreds of different species sat in the audience, all of them looking like herbivores from various worlds. The diversity was amazing, but the pattern remained the same. No sharp teeth, no claws, no signs of predatory evolution. "Honored Council," Gentlewind announced, "I present the humans of Earth." A murmur went through the crowd. Many of the aliens seemed excited, but Marcus noticed a few nervous glances. Some of the rabbit-like beings were whispering to each other and looking worried. Elena stepped onto the central platform. "We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding with all species in the galaxy." The response was mixed. Many aliens clapped their hands, hooves, or other appendages in what seemed like approval, but the worried whispers continued. An alien that looked like a large blue sheep stood up. "Humans, we have studied your species from a distance. You are carnivores, are you not?" "We eat both plants and meat," Elena replied honestly. "We call ourselves omnivores." The sheep alien's ears flattened against its head. "And you have predatory instincts?" Dr. Hayes stepped forward. "If I may answer that. Yes, humans evolved as hunters, but we also evolved as social creatures who protect our communities. We use our predatory skills to defend those we care about." More nervous murmurs filled the room. The sheep alien sat down heavily. "This is concerning." Gentlewind raised a hand for silence. The Council recognizes that this is a delicate situation. Humans, perhaps it would be best if we continued this discussion in a smaller setting. We have prepared quarters for you, and tonight, there will be a formal dinner where you can meet representatives from various species. As they were escorted to their rooms, Marcus pulled Dr. Hayes aside. What do you think is going on? Why does everyone seem afraid of the fact that we're omnivores? Hayes shook his head. I'm not sure, but I have a theory. Look around, Captain. Every single alien we've seen is a herbivore. Where are the carnivores? Every ecosystem needs predators to function properly. That evening, the dining hall was filled with the soft sounds of conversation and the clinking of eating utensils. The human delegation sat at a table with several friendly aliens who seemed curious about Earth culture. The food was entirely plant-based, which was fine, but Marcus found himself wondering about the missing piece of the galactic puzzle. Halfway through dinner, a commotion broke out near the entrance. Marcus turned to see the cause and nearly choked on his drink. Walking into the dining hall was a creature that definitely wasn't a herbivore. The being stood nearly 8 feet tall and looked like a massive wolf walking upright. Its fur was dark, gray with silver patches, and its eyes glowed yellow in the artificial light. It wore simple clothes that didn't hide its powerful build or sharp claws. When it opened its mouth to speak, Marcus could see teeth designed for tearing meat. Every herbivore in the room went silent. Many shrank back in their seats or moved away from the newcomer. But the wolf being ignored their fear and walked calmly to an empty table in the corner. Who is that? Elena whispered to Gentlewind. The dear alien's voice was barely audible. Grimfang of the Vortak. He insisted on attending tonight's dinner. The council couldn't refuse without causing a diplomatic incident. Dr. Hayes stood up suddenly. Excuse me. Before anyone could stop him, he walked across the dining hall toward Grimfang's table. Marcus saw Colonel Walsh tense, ready to intervene if necessary, but Hayes moved with calm confidence. The wolf being looked up as Hayes approached. For a moment, the two predators studied each other, the evolved human hunter and the alien pack leader. Then Hayes did something that made the entire room gasp. He sat down across from Grimfang without showing any fear. I'm Dr. Robert Hayes, he said simply. I study pack behavior and social structures. Would you mind if I joined you for dinner? Grimfang tilted his head, much like a dog might when curious. You do not fear me, human. Should I? You're just eating dinner, same as everyone else. The wolf alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Indeed, though others here would disagree. He gestured toward the nervous herbivores watching from across the room. Hayes nodded understanding. Pack dynamics. You're the alpha predator, so they see you as a threat. But I recognize something else, you're alone. Where's the rest of your pack? Grimfang's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. In surprise. You understand pack structure? Humans are social hunters too. We know the importance of family groups and territory protection. For the next hour, Marcus watched in fascination as Hayes and Grimfang discussed hunting strategies, pack loyalty, and territorial behavior. The two found common ground in ways that seemed to surprise both of them. Meanwhile, the herbivore aliens watched nervously from their tables, clearly uncomfortable with the interaction. As the evening wound down, Grimfang stood to leave. He paused at the human table and looked directly at Marcus. Captain Reed, your pack member understands things that others in this galaxy have forgotten. What things? Marcus asked. Grimfang's yellow eyes gleamed. That predators can be protectors too. Your species interests me, human. Perhaps there is hope yet for cubs who understand the hunt. With that cryptic statement, he left the dining hall. The herbivore aliens immediately relaxed, but Marcus felt more confused than ever. Where were the other predators? Why did they seem to be outcasts in galactic society? And what had Grimfang meant about hope? Dr. Hayes returned to their table with an excited look on his face. Captain, I think we've stumbled into something much more complex than simple first contact. What do you mean? This isn't just about meeting aliens. I think we've walked into the middle of an ancient conflict between predators and prey species, and somehow we're the first species that both sides might actually accept. Elena leaned forward. What makes you say that? Hayes smiled. Because we're predators who know how to protect instead of just hunt, and that might be exactly what this galaxy needs. As they returned to their quarters that night, Marcus stared out at the stars through his window. Humanity had come to space hoping to find their place in the galaxy. Now it seemed they might become the bridge between two very different kinds of civilizations, if they could figure out how to heal whatever had driven them apart in the first place. 2 weeks after the dinner meeting with Grimfang, Marine Colonel Jessica Walsh was exploring the lower levels of Nexus Prime when she stumbled upon something that changed everything. She had been looking for a quiet place to exercise when she found a sealed door marked with symbols she didn't recognize. The door wasn't locked. When Jessica pushed it open, she discovered a hidden section of the station that looked completely different from the upper levels. The walls were darker, the lighting was dimmer, and the air felt different somehow, more alive. As she walked down a narrow corridor, she heard voices speaking in low tones. Jessica moved carefully, her military training keeping her silent. Around a corner, she found a large room filled with creatures that definitely weren't herbivores. There were beings that looked like big cats walking upright, their golden fur marked with dark stripes. Lizard-like creatures with scales that changed color sat at metal tables, and there were more of Grimfang's people, the wolf-like Vorthok, talking quietly in small groups. All of them had sharp teeth, claws, and the lean build of natural hunters. And we help you, human. Jessica spun around. Behind her stood a sleek, black-furred creature that reminded her of a panther. It was slightly smaller than the humans, but moved with deadly grace. Golden eyes studied Jessica with intelligent curiosity, rather than hostility. I was just exploring, Jessica said honestly. I didn't mean to intrude. The panther being tilted its head. You are not afraid. Should I be? A sound that might have been purring came from the creature's throat. Most coalition species would be running by now. I am Shadowclaw of the Nexari. You must be part of the human delegation. Colonel Jessica Walsh, Earth Marines. A warrior, Shadowclaw noted with approval. Come. There are others who would like to meet you. Jessica followed Shadowclaw into the larger room. Conversations stopped as the various predator species noticed her presence. She felt dozens of eyes evaluating her, but not with the fear she had seen from the herbivores above. These looks were curious, measuring, almost hopeful. Friends, Shadowclaw announced, this is Colonel Walsh of the humans. She found our gathering place on her own. A large Vorthak that wasn't Grimfang stepped forward. His fur was lighter than Grimfang's, with white patches around his muzzle that suggested age. Welcome, human. I am Ironclaw, pack leader of the station's Vorthak community. We have been hoping to speak with your people. About what? Jessica asked. Ironclaw gestured around the room. About this. The coalition pretends we don't exist. They tolerate our presence here because they need our services, but they keep us hidden away like shameful secrets. A reptilian creature with blue-green scales spoke up. They call us the Apex Alliance now, better than the old names they used for us. What old names? Jessica was starting to understand that there was a much bigger story here. Shadowclaw's eyes narrowed. Savages, primitives, the violent ones. The Coalition has spent centuries teaching the galaxy that predators are dangerous monsters who can't be trusted in civilized society. But that's not true, Jessica said. It wasn't a question. No, Ironclaw replied sadly. But it's what they believe now. What their children are taught. We've been pushed to the edges of known space, forbidden from most Coalition worlds. Jessica looked around the room again. Then what are you doing here? The predators exchanged glances. Finally, an elderly Nexari with gray streaks in her fur spoke. We protect the trade routes that the Coalition abandoned. We hunt the pirates that prey on peaceful merchants. We guard the borders against threats from outside known space. You're the galaxy's security force, Jessica realized. Unofficially, Shadowclaw confirmed. The coalition takes credit for the peaceful sectors, but they never mention who keeps them peaceful. Jessica felt anger building in her chest. That's not right. No, Ironclaw agreed. But it's been the way of things for a very long time. Until... Now, what makes now different? You, said a new voice. Jessica turned to see Grimfang entering the room. Your people change everything, Colonel Walsh. How? Grimfang sat down at one of the metal tables. Because you are predators who understand protection. Your Dr. Hayes proved that during our conversation. You hunt to defend your pack, not to dominate other species. The elderly Nexari nodded agreement. We have watched your species from a distance since you were invited to join the coalition. Your military protects civilians. Your police hunt criminals to keep communities safe. You use your predator instincts to guard those weaker than yourselves, just like you do out here, Jessica said, understanding dawning. Exactly, Shadowclaw purred. But when we try to explain this to herbivore species, they cannot see past their fear. They think all predators want to hunt them. Ironclaw leaned, fired. Your people might be the bridge we've been hoping for. Predators who can speak the language of both hunters and protectors. Before Jessica could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the hidden section. Red lights flashed and several of the predators jumped to their feet. What's that? Jessica asked. Pirates, Grimfang growled, standing quickly. A merchant convoy is under attack in the neutral zone. 3 coalition vessels, probably carrying families moving between worlds. The coalition navy? Jessica asked. Shadowclaw was already moving toward a wall covered in weapons. Won't arrive for hours. By then the merchants will be dead and their cargo stolen. So you're going to help them, Jessica said. We always do, the elderly Nexari replied, pulling on what looked like flexible armor. Though the coalition will never thank us for it. Grimfang stopped and looked at Jessica. Would your people want to see how we really operate, Colonel? Your Captain Reed should understand what we do out here. 20 minutes later, Jessica sat in the co-pilot seat of Shadowclaw's ship, watching 3 coalition merchant vessels being circled by a dozen pirate fighters. The merchant ships were large and slow, designed for carrying cargo rather than fighting. The pirate ships were fast and armed with weapons that could cut through the merchants' weak shields. There, Shadowclaw pointed to her instruments. The lead merchant ship is already losing power. They have maybe 10 minutes before the pirates break through their defenses. Where's the coalition navy? Jessica asked, still 2 hours away. They'll arrive just in time to count the bodies. Jessica activated her communicator. Captain Reed, this is Colonel Walsh. We have a situation. Captain Reed's voice crackled through the speaker. Go ahead, Jessica. There are coalition civilians under attack by pirates. The local predator species are mounting a rescue operation. Request permission to assist. A pause. Predator species? It's complicated, sir, but people are about to die if we don't act. Another pause. Permission granted. But Jessica, be careful. Thank you, sir. Shadowclaw had been listening to the conversation. Your captain trusts you to make the right choice. He's a good leader. Now let's go save some lives. The battle was unlike anything Jessica had ever seen. The predator ships moved like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks without needing constant communication. Shadowclaw's ship dove and weaved between the pirate fighters, drawing their fire away from the damaged merchants. Fourth-act ships flanked the pirates from both sides, while the reptilian Corvex ships used their superior armor to ram pirate vessels that got too close to the civilian convoy. But what impressed Jessica most was the restraint. When pirate ships were disabled, the predators captured them instead of destroying them. When pirate crews surrendered, they were taken prisoner rather than killed. You don't execute them, she observed. Why would we? Shadowclaw replied, banking hard to avoid a pirate missile. Dead pirates tell no stories. Live pirates spread the word that these trade routes are protected. It prevents future attacks. The battle lasted only 15 minutes. When it was over, the merchant convoy was safe. 12 pirate ships had been captured and not a single civilian had been killed. As they escorted the merchants back to safety, Jessica opened a channel to the lead merchant vessel. "This is Colonel Walsh of the Earth vessel Endeavor. Are you all right?" "We are safe thanks to you and your allies," came the reply. The voice sounded like one of the rabbit-like beings from the Coalition. "But I don't understand. The reports said the predators were just monsters who couldn't be trusted." Jessica looked at Shadowclaw, who was carefully monitoring the damaged merchant ship systems to make sure it would reach port safely. Maybe it's time those reports were corrected. When they returned to Nexus Prime, Jessica found Dr. Hayes waiting for her in the hidden section. He was deep in conversation with Ironclaw about pack territories and hunting grounds. "Robert," she called, "how did you find this place?" He looked up with an excited expression. "Grimfang told me about it after our dinner conversation." "Jessica, this is incredible. Do you realize what we've discovered? That the galaxy's been lying about its protectors for centuries?" "Exactly, and more than that." Hayes stood up, his eyes bright with scientific curiosity. "These species have maintained their own civilization down here. They have their own codes of honor, their own methods of cooperation, their own ways of resolving conflicts. It's like finding a whole other side of galactic society." Shadowclaw approached them. "Dr. Hayes has been asking interesting questions about how our different species work together despite our hunting instincts." "And what have you learned?" Jessica asked. Lieutenant Commander David Chen sat in the briefing room aboard the Endeavor, studying the reports that had been coming in for the past week. 3 Coalition worlds had gone silent in the outer sectors. No distress calls, no explanation, just complete communication blackout. The Coalition Council was worried, but not worried enough to send their own ships to investigate. "They want us to check it out," Captain Reed explained to his senior staff, along with some volunteers from the Apex Alliance. Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's psychologist, looked up from her notes. "Are we sure it's safe to work this closely with the predator species? The Coalition seems very concerned about them." Colonel Walsh, who had spent the last week visiting the hidden levels of Nexus Prime, shook her head. "The Coalition's wrong about them, Amy. These aren't bloodthirsty monsters. They're the galaxy's actual protectors." "But why haven't they told the Coalition Council about this alliance?" Foster asked. Dr. Hayes leaned forward in his chair. "Because the Council wouldn't listen. From what I've learned, there was some kind of ancient conflict between predators and prey species. The herbivores won, and they've been writing the history books ever since." Captain Reed stood up. "Whatever happened in the past, we have people missing now. David, you'll lead the investigation team. Take Dr. Foster with you to help with any survivors we find. The Apex Alliance is providing 3 representatives." 2 hours later, Chen found himself aboard a sleek Nixari ship called the Silent Hunter. The pilot was Shadowclaw, who had insisted on personally leading the Predator contribution to the mission. With them was Starfall, a young Vorthak female who was apparently Grimfang's daughter, and Blackthorn, an older Corvex warrior whose scales were dark green with silver edges. "First time working with a mixed Predator team?" Shadowclaw asked Chen as they left Nexus Prime behind. "First time working with any non-human team," Chen admitted, "but I'm looking forward to it." Starfall, who looked like a slightly smaller version of her father but with lighter gray fur, tilted her head curiously. "You don't smell afraid like the Coalition species do." "Should I be afraid?" "Not of us," Blackthorn rumbled in a deep voice. "We hunt together now." Dr. Foster was taking notes on her tablet, fascinated by the interaction. "How do your different species coordinate during missions? Your hunting styles must be completely different." Shadowclaw purred softly. "Nixari are ambush hunters. We strike, fast and silent. Vorthak are pack hunters who coordinate complex group attacks. Corvex are persistence hunters who can track prey for days without stopping." "And humans?" Starfall asked. Chen thought about it. "We're adaptable. We use tools, we plan ahead, and we work in teams. I guess we're whatever kind of hunters the situation needs." "Interesting," Blackthorn said. "Your species bridges different hunting styles." The first planet they investigated was called Haven's Rest. It had been a peaceful farming world with about 50,000 inhabitants, mostly from herbivore species. When their ship entered orbit, they found no signs of life on the communication networks, but the planet looked normal from space. No signs of bombardment, Chen observed, studying the sensor readings. Whatever happened wasn't a typical military attack. They landed near the planet's main city. The streets were empty, but there were no bodies, no signs of violence, no damage to the buildings. It was as if everyone had simply vanished. "This is strange," Dr. Foster said as they walked through the abandoned streets. "There should be some sign of what happened. People don't just disappear." Starfall was sniffing the air, her enhanced senses picking up traces that humans couldn't detect. Something was here, something that doesn't belong. "What kind of something?" Chen asked. "Metal, old metal, and something else." She paused, her ears flattening against her head. "Something that makes me want to run." Blackthorn's scales shifted to a darker color. "I sense it too. Ancient danger. Very old fear." They found the first clue in the city's central square. A large statue had been knocked over, and burn marks scarred the ground around it. But the burns weren't from normal weapons. They looked more like someone had taken a giant eraser and simply removed pieces of reality. "Energy weapons," Shadowclaw said, examining the marks. "But not any design I recognize." Dr. Foster knelt beside one of the burn marks. "These patterns are too precise to be random. Whatever did this was targeting specific things." Chen activated his communicator. "Captain, we're finding evidence of some kind of advanced energy weapon attack. No bodies, no survivors, but definite signs of conflict." "Any idea what you're dealing with?" Captain Reed's voice came through clearly. "Not yet, sir, but our Predator allies are picking up scent traces that suggest something very old was involved." They spent the next several hours searching the city. In every building they found the same thing, signs that people had been going about their normal lives when something happened. Meals were left half-finished, children's toys were scattered on floors, but the people were gone. It was Starfall who made the breakthrough. She had been investigating the city's main computer center when she called the others over urgently. "Look, at this," she said, pointing to a wall screen that was still functioning. The screen showed what looked like a security recording from 3 days ago. They watched as normal daily life in the city suddenly changed. People stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. Then they began walking, all in the same direction, their faces blank and emotionless. "Mind control," Dr. Foster breathed. Something was making them move. The recording continued, showing the entire population of the city walking in perfect formation toward the spaceport. Then the recording cut off. They were taken, Chen realized. Not killed, taken. Blackthorn's scales were now almost black. This matches old stories, very old stories from before the Great Division. "What Great Division?" Chen asked. Shadowclaw's golden eyes were troubled. "The war between predators and prey that broke the galaxy apart. Some say it started because of invaders from outside. Others say it was just natural conflict between different species. They investigated 2 more planets and found the same pattern: empty cities, energy weapon burns, and security recordings, showing entire populations walking calmly to their own capture. On the 3rd planet, they found something different. In a hidden bunker beneath the capital city, they discovered a group of survivors. 23 individuals from various herbivore species, all of them terrified and refusing to come out of hiding. Dr. Foster worked carefully to gain their trust. It took an hour of patient conversation before the survivors would even speak to her. When they finally agreed to talk, their story changed everything. They came from the sky, whispered a rabbit-like being who seemed to be the group's leader. Machines. Ancient machines that spoke in our minds. "What did they say?" Foster asked gently. "That we were part of the collection. That all thinking species belonged to the archive." The survivor's voice shook with terror. "They said they had been waiting for the galaxy to rebuild itself after the last harvest." Chen felt ice in his veins. "Harvest?" Another survivor, one of the deer-like Thalan, spoke up. "The machines showed us images, pictures of our worlds from thousands of years ago, when there were different species living here. They said those species had been harvested too. But we hid, the rabbit being continued. We hid when everyone else walked to the ships. The machines couldn't find us if we stayed underground. Dr. Foster exchanged worried glances with Chen. Why couldn't they find you underground? The metal interfered with their mind control. The old bunkers were built with special alloys during the Great Division. Starfall had been listening quietly, but now she stepped forward. The survivors cringed away from her, clearly terrified of the predator species. The bunkers, she said softly. They were built to hide from the harvesters, weren't they? That's what the Great Division was really about. The rabbit being nodded reluctantly. The old stories say that predator and prey species worked together against the harvesters long ago. But when the harvesters left, the alliance fell apart. Some say the predators wanted to take over. Others say the herbivores blamed the predators for bringing the harvesters in the first place. Blackthorn's scales shifted to deep red. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years over a lie. What's the situation, David? Sir, I don't think these are random attacks. I think something that harvested the galaxy before has come back, and the Coalition has no idea what they're facing. On the flight back to Nexus Prime, Dr. Foster worked with the survivors, while Chen, Shadowclaw, Starfall, and Blackthorn planned their next moves. The machines will be back, Foster reported. The survivors are certain of it. They said the harvesters always take the outer worlds first, then move toward the core systems. How long do we have? Chen asked. Based on the pattern of attacks, maybe 2 weeks before they hit the main Coalition worlds. Starfall was pacing back and forth, her predator instincts clearly agitated. We need to warn both the Coalition and the Apex Alliance. This threat is bigger than our old divisions. Will they listen? Chen asked. Blackthorn made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. The Coalition fears us too much to trust our warnings, and we have hidden from them for so long that they don't even know how to. Chen activated his communicator. Captain, we need immediate evacuation for survivors, and we need to get back to Nexus Prime as fast as possible. What's the situation, David? Sir, I don't think these are random attacks. I think something that harvested the galaxy before has come back, and the Coalition has no idea what they're facing. On the flight back to Nexus Prime, Dr. Foster worked with the survivors, while Chen, Shadowclaw, Starfall, and Blackthorn planned their next moves. The machines will be back, Foster reported. The survivors are certain of it. They said the harvesters always take the outer worlds first, then move toward the core systems. How long do we have? Chen asked. Based on the pattern of attacks, maybe 2 weeks before they hit the main Coalition worlds. Starfall was pacing back and forth, her predator instincts clearly agitated. We need to warn both the Coalition and the Apex Alliance. This threat is bigger than our old divisions. Will they listen? Chen asked. Blackthorn made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. The Coalition fears us too much to trust our warnings, and we have hidden from them for so long that they don't even know how to contact most of our people. Then we need to change that, Chen said firmly. Fast. Dr. Foster looked up from her work with the survivors. There's something else. The survivors said that in the old stories, predators and prey species could only defeat the harvesters by working together. Separate, neither group was strong enough. The ancient alliance, Shadowclaw murmured. The stories were true. Then we need to rebuild it, Chen said, before it's too late. As they approached Nexus Prime, Chen realized that humanity had stumbled into something much bigger than first contact with alien species. They had walked into the middle of an ancient war that had torn the galaxy apart, and now, with the enemy returning, they might be the key to putting it back together. But first, they had to convince two groups who had been enemies for millennia that their survival depended on becoming family again. The fate of the galaxy might depend on whether 3 human officers could teach an entire civilization how to be a pack. Admiral Patricia Moore stood on the bridge of the newly promoted flagship Endeavour, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for departure. 2 weeks had passed since the discovery of the harvesters, and convincing the Coalition to work with the Apex Alliance had been the hardest diplomatic challenge humanity had ever faced. It took the direct testimony of the survivors, combined with 3 more worlds going silent before the Coalition Council finally agreed to an emergency alliance. Even then, many herbivore species remained terrified of working alongside their ancient predator enemies. Fleet status report, Admiral Moore called out. 47 Coalition vessels ready for departure, reported Communications Officer Park. 31 Apex Alliance ships standing by. All human vessels are at full readiness. Dr. Hayes, now serving as the fleet's xenobiologist advisor, looked up from his console. The predator species are excited about this mission. Working alongside former enemies feels natural to them, like reuniting separated pack members. And the Coalition species? Moore asked, still nervous but determined. They understand the stakes now. The fleet's mission was to trace the harvester signal to its source. The ancient machines had been sending data somewhere after each attack, and the combined technical expertise of all galactic species had finally tracked the destination, a massive structure at the center of the galaxy that hadn't appeared on any star charts. Captain Reed, now serving as Moore's second-in-command, approached with the latest intelligence reports. Admiral, our scouts have confirmed the target. It's artificial, approximately the size of Earth's moon, and it's been there for at least 10,000 years. Any signs of activity? Massive energy readings, and our Corvex allies report that their long-range sensors are picking up something they call death metal scent even at this distance. Engineer Staff Sergeant Lisa Park had spent the past 2 weeks working with alien technicians to upgrade human ships with new defensive systems. The cooperation between species had produced innovations that none of them could have achieved alone. The new shield harmonics are working perfectly, Park reported. The Nexari stealth technology combined with Vorthak pack coordination protocols, and Corvex endurance engineering has created defensive systems that adapt in real time. Moore nodded approvingly. And the Coalition contributions? Their shield resonance technology and the Thalen healing field generators have been integrated with our medical bays. If anyone gets injured during this mission, we'll have the best emergency care in galactic history. The journey to the galaxy's center took 3 days. During the trip, something remarkable happened. Species that had avoided each other for thousands of years began working together naturally. Human officers found themselves serving as translators, not just of language, but of intent and emotion between predator and prey species. Dr. Amy Foster spent her time documenting the psychological changes happening throughout the fleet. It's incredible, she told Moore during one of their daily briefings. The artificial barriers between species are breaking down. A Thalen engineer will work happily alongside a Vorthak warrior as long as there's a human present to facilitate the initial introduction. Why do you think that is? Because humans are predators that the herbivore species can trust, and pack hunters that the predator species accept as family. We're living proof that the old fears don't have to define relationships. On the 3rd day, they reached their destination and found something that changed their understanding of galactic history forever. The structure was massive beyond imagination, a geometric construct of metal and crystal that dwarfed even the largest planets. But it wasn't just a building. As they approached, it became clear that the entire structure was actually a vast computer, its surfaces covered in patterns that pulsed with stored information. It's a database, breathed Captain Michael Torres, Elena's brother who had joined the mission as a tactical specialist. The whole thing is one enormous storage device. More disturbing were the ships. Thousands of vessels from dozens of different species were docked at ports around the structure. Some of the ship designs were familiar, Coalition and Apex Alliance vessels that had disappeared over the centuries. Others were completely unknown, clearly from species that no longer existed. The Harvester fleet, Admiral Moore realized. Those are all the ships they've collected over the millennia. As the fleet approached, they were challenged by automated defense systems. Ancient weapons platforms activated around the structure, their targeting systems locking onto the intruders. All ships, defensive positions, Moore commanded. Remember, we're here to investigate, not start a war. But the choice was taken away from them when the weapons platforms opened fire. Energy beams, unlike anything in current galactic technology, lanced out toward the approaching fleet. The battle that followed proved the value of the new alliance. Coalition ships used their advanced shield technology to protect Predator vessels, while Apex Alliance hunters used their superior maneuverability to attack the ancient weapons. Human ships coordinated between both groups, their adaptability allowing them to switch roles as needed. Engineer Park found herself working frantically to keep the ship's systems running as weapons fire rocked the Endeavor. "Admiral, our new hybrid shields are holding, but these weapons are using technology that's thousands of years more advanced than ours. Can we get through their defenses?" "Not with conventional weapons, but I have an idea." Park's fingers flew over her controls. "If we can get close enough to physically dock with the structure, I might be able to interface directly with their computer systems." Captain Torres studied the tactical situation. It would have to be a small team, and someone would have to stay behind to pilot the ship back out. "I'll do it," Park volunteered immediately. Admiral Moore shook her head. "Too dangerous. We need our best engineer alive." "Actually," Dr. Hayes interrupted, "I think Lisa's right, but she shouldn't go alone." He turned to the communication console. "Shadowclaw, are you monitoring this conversation?" The Nexari warrior's voice came through clearly. "Yes, Dr. Hayes, and I volunteer to accompany Engineer Park. Nexari are the best at infiltration missions. Count me in too," came Starfall's voice from another ship. "Vorthak are good at watching each other's backs, and Korvex are excellent at breaking things that need to be broken," added Blackthorn's rumbling voice. Moore looked around her bridge, seeing the determination in her crew's faces. "All right, but this is a reconnaissance mission only. Get in, find out what we're dealing with, and get back out." The infiltration team consisted of 4 beings who 2 months ago would never have trusted each other. Park brought her engineering expertise and human adaptability. Shadowclaw provided stealth and combat skills. Starfall contributed pack tactics and enhanced senses. Blackthorn offered technical knowledge of ancient systems and the patience to solve complex puzzles. Getting to the structure required flying through a maze of weapons fire, while Coalition and Apex Alliance ships provided covering fire. The small shuttle, piloted by Shadowclaw, moved like a hunting cat through the ancient defenses. "There," Park pointed to a section of the structure that showed different energy patterns. "That looks like a maintenance access port." They docked successfully, and Park began the delicate process of interfacing with systems that were older than any known civilization. What she found inside the ancient database shocked all of them. "It's not just storing information about the species they've harvested," she reported back to the fleet. "It's storing the actual consciousness of every being they've ever taken." Dr. Hayes's voice was filled with wonder. "They're not killing them, they're preserving them." "But why?" Admiral Moore asked. Starfall, who had been exploring deeper into the structure, provided the answer. "Because they're not really harvesters. They're refugees." The team had found the structure's central core, where ancient AI systems maintained the consciousness of trillions of beings from across galactic history. The machines weren't conquerors. They were the survivors of some even greater catastrophe that had destroyed their home galaxy millions of years ago. "They came here seeking refuge," Park explained, her voice full of amazement. "But their method of preservation required taking entire populations. They didn't understand that other species might not want to be saved this way." Blackthorn had been working with the ancient computers, his natural understanding of long-term thinking helping him communicate with the AI systems. "They're trying to preserve all intelligent life before something destroys it, something they call the Great Dark." "What's the Great Dark?" Moore asked. The answer came directly from the ancient AIs themselves, speaking through the communication system in voices that carried the weight of millions of years. "The destroyer of galaxies, the consumer of stars. We fled before it once. We hoped to preserve all life before it arrives here." Park felt her blood turn cold. "When does it arrive?" "Soon. Perhaps within your single lifetime. We had hoped to complete our preservation of this galaxy's species before then." The revelation changed everything. The ancient machines weren't invaders. They were refugees trying to save everyone from something even worse. But their methods were stripping away everything that made life worth living. "There has to be another way," Admiral Moore's voice came, through the communication link. A way to fight this great dark instead of just hiding from it. The ancient AIs paused, processing this concept. Fight? No species has ever proposed fighting the great dark. All previous civilizations chose preservation, or extinction. Maybe that's because no galaxy has ever been united before, Park said, looking at her alien companions who had become true friends. We have something you've never seen, predators and prey working together as one pack. The silence that followed was filled with possibility. Finally, one of the ancient voices spoke again. Show us this unity. If you can prove that cooperation between natural enemies is possible, we will help you prepare to face the great dark as warriors rather than as refugees. As the team prepared to return to their fleet, Park realized that their mission had accomplished something beyond their wildest dreams. They hadn't just stopped the harvesters, they had gained allies with millions of years of knowledge and technology. The galaxy's divided species had found each other again, and now, united as one vast family, they would face the ultimate test together. 18 years later, Fleet Admiral Marcus Reed stood on the command bridge of the Unity, humanity's flagship, and the coordination center for the largest defensive fleet in known history. Around him, officers from dozens of species worked together with the smooth efficiency that came from growing up in mixed species families. The Great Dark had arrived exactly when predicted. Deep space sensors showed the advanced scouts consuming the outer gas giants of uninhabited systems, converting stellar matter into energy for the vast force behind them. Soon they would turn their attention to worlds with life. Fleet status report, Admiral Reed called out. 12,000 vessels ready for deployment, reported his operations officer, a young Nexari named Quickstrike who had been adopted by a human family as a cub. Coalition defensive platforms are online. Apex Alliance hunter squadrons are in position. Ancient AI strategic coordination is functioning perfectly. Captain Elena Torres, now serving as diplomatic liaison for the combined fleet, approached with the latest intelligence. The enemy advanced scouts have consumed 17 uninhabited systems. They're learning our defensive patterns and adapting their approach. Any changes to their behavior? Reed asked. That's the interesting part. They seem confused by our response patterns. The ancient AIs say this is the first time they've seen the Great Dark hesitate during an invasion. Dr. Amy Foster had been promoted to Chief Psychological Strategist for the Defense Force. Her insights into interspecies cooperation had become crucial for coordinating the vast alliance. The enemy is having trouble predicting our tactics because they're based on family loyalty rather than species survival instinct, Foster explained. They've never encountered a civilization where a Thalen will sacrifice herself to protect a Vorthak, or where a Nexari will share resources with a Corvex. Engineer Jake Morrison had spent the past 18 years developing the technological integration that made their defense possible. His greatest achievement was a network that allowed instant communication between all allied minds, biological, artificial, and hybrid. The Unity network is operating at full capacity, Morrison reported. Every ship, every planet, every individual in our alliance is connected. When one of us learns something, we all learn it immediately. The first real battle came when the enemy scouts attacked an agricultural world in the Mid-Rim. The planet was defended by a mixed garrison of Coalition and Apex Alliance forces, supported by ancient AI tactical systems. Admiral Reed watched the battle unfold through the Unity network, experiencing it simultaneously from thousands of different perspectives. Thalen engineers maintained shield systems while Vorthak warriors coordinated attack runs. Corvex defenders held critical positions with patient determination, while Nexari infiltrators struck at enemy weak points. But what made the battle truly unique was the emotional component. When a Thalen engineer was wounded, her adopted Vorthak pack siblings fought with desperate fury to protect her. When a Nexari scout was trapped behind enemy lines, a Corvex clutch brother abandoned his defensive position to mount a rescue. They're fighting like family, Reed observed with wonder. Because they are family, replied Starfall, now a senior pack leader who coordinated Vorthak forces across multiple systems. Species doesn't matter. Pack loyalty is everything. The battle ended, with the enemy scouts retreating for the first time in recorded history. They had encountered something their programming couldn't understand. Defenders who became stronger when their allies were threatened instead of weaker. But the victory came at a cost. The Unity Network had carried the emotional impact of every injury, every loss, every moment of fear and triumph to every connected mind. The entire galaxy had experienced the battle together. Some people are having trouble handling the shared trauma, Dr. Foster reported. When everyone feels everyone else's pain, grief becomes overwhelming. But so does love, added Gentlestream, the elderly Thalen who had become a symbol of interspecies adoption. At nearly 200 years old, she was now the honored grandmother of 7 different species. We share the loss, but we also share the strength that comes from knowing we're not alone. The main Great Dark Force arrived 3 months later, and nothing could have prepared the galaxy for its scale. The enemy wasn't just a fleet. It was a living wave of consuming darkness that stretched across entire star systems. Within it moved entities the size of planets, creatures that fed on stellar energy and grew larger with each system they devoured. Conventional warfare won't work against something that size, Admiral Reed realized as they studied the enemy formation. We need a completely different approach. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The youngest members of the Alliance, children who had grown up in mixed-species families, proposed a strategy that horrified their elders, but might be the only solution. We don't fight the Great Dark, explained Maria Santos, a 12-year-old, human girl who had been adopted by a Corvex clutch. We adopt it. That's insane, several adult officers protested, but Dr. Foster was listening carefully. Explain what you mean, Maria. The Great Dark consumes galaxies because it's hungry and alone, Maria said with the simple logic of childhood. What if we could teach it to be part of a family instead of always being hungry? Young Starfall's daughter, a Vorthak cub named Brighthowl, nodded eagerly. Every predator understands hunger, but pack loyalty is stronger than hunger. If we could make the Great Dark understand that it belongs to our pack, maybe it would stop trying to eat everyone. The ancient AI curator of memory processed this concept with something approaching amazement. In millions of years of existence, no species has ever proposed attempting communication with the Great Dark. All previous strategies focused on resistance or escape. Because no previous galaxy had learned to love its predators, said Thomas Kim, a 10-year-old human boy whose adoptive family included beings from 6 different species. The Great Dark is just a really big predator that doesn't know how to be part of a family. Admiral Reed looked around the command center, seeing the mixed species crew that had become his own extended family. Children and adults, predators and prey, ancient minds and young souls, all of them connected by bonds that transcended every natural barrier. How would we even attempt communication with something that size? He asked. Dr. Foster smiled. The same way we always have, with humans serving as translators between different types of consciousness. The plan that emerged was simultaneously the most ambitious and most terrifying strategy in galactic history. Using the Unity Network, they would attempt to establish emotional contact with the Great Dark itself. Not to fight it, but to offer it something it had never encountered, the possibility of belonging to something larger than itself. The risk is enormous, warned Captain Torres during the planning session. If we open our minds to something that powerful and it's hostile, it could destroy our entire network. But if we succeed, countered Engineer Morrison, we might solve a threat that has destroyed countless galaxies. The attempt was made from the Unity itself, with Admiral Reed serving as the primary contact point and the entire Galactic Alliance providing support through the Unity Network. As they reached out across space toward the approaching darkness, billions of minds joined together in the largest act of communication ever attempted. The first contact was overwhelming. The Great Dark was indeed hungry, not just for energy, but for connection. It had been alone for so long that it had forgotten any purpose except consumption. It moved through galaxies like a massive predator, taking what it needed to survive, but never finding satisfaction. Through the Unity Network, it experienced something new. the emotional bonds that held the alliance together. It felt the love between adopted family members, the loyalty that crossed species lines, the willingness to sacrifice for those who were different but cherished. "It's confused," Dr. Foster reported, her voice strained from the mental effort. "It doesn't understand how beings can choose to care for those who aren't genetically related." "Show it our families," suggested Maria Santos. "Let it see how adoption works." The network shared memories, thousands of adoption ceremonies, millions of moments when beings chose to love and protect others despite natural differences. The Great Dark experienced the joy of a Thalen child playing with Vorthak pack siblings, the pride of a Nixari warrior defending a Corvex clutchmate, the satisfaction of ancient AIs incorporating living beings into their consciousness networks. Slowly, amazingly, the Great Dark began to understand. It had been consuming galaxies in a desperate attempt to fill the emptiness where connection should have been. It had never learned that hunger could be satisfied by belonging rather than by consuming. The change wasn't immediate. The Great Dark was ancient and vast, and altering its fundamental nature required time and patience. But gradually, its consuming darkness began to transform into something else, a protective presence that surrounded the galaxy like the ultimate pack guardian. Some of its entities remained as they were, continuing to feed on uninhabited stellar matter. But others began to change, developing the capacity for communication and emotional connection. The galaxy found itself with new family members, beings of immense power who had chosen protection over consumption. "It worked," Admiral Reed said with wonder as reports came in from across the galaxy. "The Great Dark has become part of our pack." Not all of it, of course. Some portions of the vast entity were too ancient and set in their patterns to change. They departed for other galaxies, perhaps to continue their endless consumption, perhaps to seek other civilizations that might teach them about family. But enough remained to transform both the Great Dark and the galaxy itself. The former destroyer became the ultimate protector, using its vast power to shield the Alliance from other intergalactic threats. Years later, Admiral Reed stood in the same command center, now serving as coordinator for a galactic civilization that spanned multiple galaxies. The Alliance had grown beyond anything anyone could have imagined, incorporating species from dozens of different galaxies who had heard about a place where natural enemies became family. Dr. Foster, now elderly but still sharp, joined him at the observation deck. "Do you ever regret how complicated everything became?" she asked. Reed smiled, watching ships from hundreds of species moving through space in perfect coordination, their crews bound by adoption ties that made them stronger than any biological family. "Complicated?" he said. "This isn't complicated. This is what family looks like when it's big enough to include everyone." In the distance, entities that had once been part of the Great Dark moved through space like benevolent guardians, their consciousness now connected to the Unity network, their purpose transformed from consumption to protection. They had learned the greatest lesson the galaxy could teach, that belonging to a pack was infinitely more satisfying than hunting alone. Humanity had come to space hoping to find their place among the stars. Instead, they had helped the entire universe discover that family wasn't about being the same. It was about choosing to love and protect each other despite being different. The galaxy had become the greatest pack in cosmic history, and every being in it knew that they were home.